Yes, I'm from BBDO, and I'll speak you through all the research that we that we conduct and a bit of an overview of that as well. Just so everyone's not trying to write down, there'll be a lot of graphs and stats and things like that. I'll talk you through them as best I can, but they will be available online after as well with some notes and commentary, so you don't need to continuously write everything down as we go along. So a bit of an agenda of what I'm going to talk you through today. I'm going to do a recap on a campaign we did, which hopefully everyone will remember, from January, which is to encourage people to join and raise awareness of all the amazing opportunities within tourism and hospitality industry. Then there'll be an overview of the research in terms of the big takeouts and how it was conducted, key issues facing tourism and hospitality, the key benefits of working within the industry, the differences and commonalities between the employers in tourism and then hospitality, as there are differences between them, the existing and desired benefits for employees, so that's beyond pay, what are the other things employees really are looking for, and as well then overall just the key takeouts. So the first thing, talking about the previous campaign that we did, so give you a bit of context and a background for it, which everyone here is very familiar with as well. Obviously this is in the wake of Brexit and COVID as well, had a significant impact on the staff and the staffing issues within tourism and hospitality. One of the things which kind of indicated this was online job postings had increased by 366% from in April 2021 compared to April 2020, and that just showed the increased demand that there was from employers looking for employees and staff. So this campaign really was commissioned by Tourism Northern Ireland in collaboration with HATS as well, to raise awareness of all the amazing job opportunities that were available. And we are channeling people towards careerscope.uk, as that had all the job postings and listings to encourage people to go and join them. So I'll talk you through kind of the campaign overall. So the campaign was called Count Me In. And really what to do is to try to hero the staff in all sorts of different positions across tourism and hospitality, to show all the range of different job opportunities and careers, but also how much these people enjoy their job and the passion that they have for it. So there was 9 of these, and I've just showed 4 here for example. So for example, a mixologist. So I practice mixology. It's like biology, only with more gin. Or for an events manager, I'm the one who puts the life into live events. For a chef, I'm an artist, I'm a medium as root vegetables, and for an a visitor experience manager, I use my experience to make yours better. So this is an example of the creative that was shown in out-of-home formats, so things that are like at bus stops, billboards. It was also, there was a radio campaign version of it, it was in newspapers and in magazines, and it was in social media and digital media. And I said all of that was highlighting these different positions and focusing people towards the careerscope.uk landing page. So the results we got, there were a lot of really positive results. There was, as well as the kind of some of the figures and data we got on it, there was also anecdotally, we heard there was from a lot of employers saying they saw an increase in applications, but also an increase in the quality of the applicants themselves, which is really important as well. But looking a bit more on CareerScope as that landing page and what results went to that. So there was over 69 page views, 69,000 page views of people who landed on it, which is a really good result. And there's always a drop off in terms of the final click or action people are going to take, but we received over 4,700 unique openings of different job opportunities. So that's where people actually click on the apply button. And that's actually a really good, a really strong conversion rate and a high percentage of people to translate into initially looking at the page to actually clicking on the opportunity as well. So we are looking at another campaign or kind of comms initiative that will come at some point next year, but at the moment that's still in development and under review. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the research overall and what we did. And I suppose I'd like to caveat first that, of course, this is kind of looking at the challenges and opportunities with the industry on a macro context. So obviously different businesses will have your own challenges and things that are going well or maybe not going well. So this isn't a reflection of any one business. And also as well, it's important to take into consideration that in every country, they're faced the same issues and challenges for tourism and hospitality, and also all different industries as well. So there's so many, it's a kind of real employees market at the moment. So everyone seems to be struggling to find different employees for different sectors. So it's good to keep that macro thinking in mind as well. But in terms of what we did, so this was kind of the first research of its kind that was done here, and especially to the scale and how in-depth this research was. It was really quite all-encompassing. So we spoke to, there was a mixture of actually speaking to people in kind of interview-like context, and then also surveys and data. So we did interviews with industry stakeholders, employers, recruiters, and reps, and that was 10 participants in that. We did in-depth paired discussions as well, so with a mix of people who are current employees and past employees, students, and also potential employees as well. So it was 34 of those paired interviews. And then as well as that, there was a nationally representative survey with the public that had 664 responses, which is really comprehensive data size as well to gauge the perception of the public about the industry. And also there was a survey with employees within the industry. So there was 297 of those, which again is really comprehensive for the size of the industry. So just one thing you'll see throughout, there's kind of different references to specifically pulling out tourism and then hospitality separately. So these were the definitions used to help people get an understanding of what we meant by each one, and it's quite conversational in its language. So tourism covers things like tour guiding and working in museums, visitor attractions, tourist transport, or tourism marketing and sales. Or hospitality covers things like working in hotels or holidays, short stay accommodation, bars, restaurants, nightclubs or events. So I suppose before getting into the exact data, to speak, I suppose, about the big picture and the overall takeouts that are happening here. And I think a lot of these things won't be as much of a surprise to anyone who works in the industry. It's really bringing to the fore a lot of the issues and challenges and opportunities that you know already. But I suppose one kind of analogy was, at the moment, it seems like the industry is, what we'd say, at a crossroads. If you take the left turn, what that's going to do is that's going to going back to the practices and the habits that were there pre-COVID. A lot of what we'll see is a lot of the embedded behaviours or things which were kind of legacy, which aren't necessarily going to improve the industry in the long term going forward. Where if we look at it in a different way and make different decisions that actually address some of the underlying challenges that were there and practices, and use as an opportunity, as a reflection point, to kind of future-proof the industry going forward. So no matter if a situation similar to this happens again, the industry will be more will be stronger, more developed, and built on sounder building blocks. So that's just an analogy we have as a way of looking at it. It's a real inflection point for the industry. And within that, then there's two kind of ways that we can look at addressing that. As we said, there was a comms campaign, and there's going to be other things like that going forward. But then there's the actual internal experiences and practices. So really, when we look at it, that in order to succeed, we need to change the reality of what it's like to work within the industry itself. Rather than just kind of trying to change public perceptions of the comms. Because we have the external perceptions, which comms highlight the positive reasons why someone should work there. But if someone goes there and it doesn't meet those expectations, that's they're just gonna bounce right out again. So the internal experiences and the employer practices, improving the reality of work conditions is so important, because as we all know, word of mouth and the things that the employees say about where they work is actually the main driver of getting other people to go and work in and retaining staff for longer. So that's really, really important. But I suppose looking then at some of the data, and as I said, some of these are quite tricky kind of graphs and things. I'll explain them as easily as I can, but there will be the information online after. So first of all, looking at the issues facing tourism and hospitality. So this first graph, the question here, we asked people in general across a lot of different industries, which of these sectors will be appealing for you to work in? And this is the first point where we see the first yellow line is tourism and the second yellow line is hospitality. And this is the first point we can see that there's a bit of a difference in the perceptions between tourism and hospitality, that tourism is generally seen as a more desirable industry to work in as a whole. But overall, it's not a bad standing compared to a lot of other industries, but this shows there is a difference between the two. And then looking at that again with the public in general, what are the things that they actually value the most in a job, in a career? So what are the qualities that they're really looking for? So there's a long list of these, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on the first 5 as the first key, most important aspects of work. And again, a lot of these won't really be a surprise, but I think it's interesting to compare these to some of the information later. So job security, number 1, of course, within the wake of COVID, that's so important, especially for this industry. Number 2, being valued and respected by my employer. So actually feeling like you're a valued part of the workforce and not just an employee. And being able, essentially this one is about being able to take holidays off, with reasonable flexibility, as long as you give notice to your employer as well. So that feeds into work-life balance and flexibility. Working for more than minimum wage, again, really important, and that's a minimum wage. That's not even about high salaries, that's just having a livable salary. And having opportunities for promotion would increase salary as well. So again, that's another thing we'll see continuously, is the idea of people want to feel like they've a future building blocks in the way of working up the ranks. What's really interesting here, I think, is salary only comes in fourth compared to other things that are higher than it. And security, being valued, flexibility, again, they're all really important themes we're going to see throughout. This next graph is a little bit trickier, so I'll explain it to you, but essentially what you have is it takes those same reasons, but beside each of them, the red outlined bar, that shows the information we've seen previously in terms of how important it is to people, but then under each, there's the green is tourism, and the blue is hospitality. So what this is showing us is the difference between the things that people want and how evident they feel they are from an outside perspective in tourism and hospitality. So for the first one, we see quite a significant difference between job security, it again was the most important thing, but a far smaller percent of the public feel that job security is something which is really present within tourism and hospitality industries. And again, we see that in terms of valued and respected by employers. There's a significant drop off there as well. So there's a disparity between perceptions of the industry and what they actually really want out of a career. Again, being able to flexibility in terms of being able to take holidays, there's a difference there as well. Working for more than minimum wage, that's relatively close, which is good. But again, that's minimum wage, so it's a kind of livable salary that you can have. And then having opportunities for promotion and increased salary. Again, there's a bit of a disparity there. And you'll see a lot of these themes and these kind of desires coming through within the actual research from existing employees as well. I'll just point out one of them that looks a bit different from the others. So it's the seventh one, which is about working weekends. Although it looks like people feel nearly shows that people feel like they wouldn't have to work weekends. It's actually the inverse for this one. It was just the way the question was phrased. So nearly 30% of people feel it's important for them to not have to work weekends, but quite a lot of people, nearly 50% of people feel that in tourism and hospitality, you would have to work at weekends, which of course is part of the industry, but just thought I'd point that out. So then looking at employees within the industry, again, this is looking at retention rather than just desire to go work in the industry. And we're seeing again here, there's the difference between tourism and hospitality. So what we asked people was, would you like to still be working in your respective industry in 5 years? And what we saw is on the left is tourism. So I'm going to focus on at the top, the no figure there. So only 11.2% of people wouldn't like to still be working at it in 5 years, which is quite a healthy. Where in hospitality, that's 48.1% of people, 46.1% of people wouldn't like to be working there in 5 years. Now, there's reasons for this. Hospitality tends to have a higher churn anyway. There's an awful lot more students and part-time workers within it, so that explains kind of a decent chunk of it. But it does also still allude to retention is probably a larger issue within hospitality than tourism, and it's something which is really important to, again, protect the long-term health of the industry and of individual businesses. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the main negative kind of perceptions that existing employees have of their respective industries. So on the right, there's quotes, which I'm not going to talk through, but they kind of exemplify and kind of bring to life the research and the data that's here on the left. So for each, I've picked out the top three negatives from each. So first of all, for tourism, the number one negative is having to miss out on personal social life because of work. Number two is staff being paid minimum wage or very low wage. And number three is an absence of proper training. So what we're seeing here are some similarities with the things people desire the most from their industry. So that kind of flexibility in social life, the salary and getting actually a good livable wage, and then training that can help with progression. So again, these are things which are really important that are the things which some people in tourism feel aren't strong enough or aren't there at the moment. And when we look at hospitality, what you'll see first of all again here is actually the figures in terms of the negatives the percentages are just higher in hospitality. So again, it shows that these issues are probably more prevalent in hospitality than they are in tourism at the moment. But there's some kind of similarity. So you're having to work evenings, 50% of people felt that. Staff being paid minimum wage or a very low wage was 44%, or having to work weekends was 43%. So a lot of that, relates to flexibility, work-life balance, weekends, which, as we know, is a part of the industry, but there might be different ways of working around it, of giving employees more of a choice of when and how they work, if possible. And of course, salary is an existing point there as well. And what this kind of says to us, and particularly looking at hospitality, because there's, as well as just the kind of the data, the facts, even if you think about this in terms of public perceptions of the industry in general, one way of thinking about it is there's the way the industry portrays itself, and it's particularly to people you want to come and experience and enjoy: hotels, restaurants, different attractions, all of that sort of stuff. There's a really warm, welcoming feeling which is there, which everyone feels when they go to somewhere. However, there's the other side that's often portrayed by the media in terms of what it's like to actually work within these industries. And we all know these things. There's like Kitchen Nightmares, Kitchen Confidential. Boiling Point was a movie that was released earlier on the year or last year, which was about working within a high-end restaurant. And it just shows that both perceptions exist within the public eye, but when people focus on working within the industry, they're going to gravitate much more towards on the right, as that's what's portrayed constantly. So it's our job, I suppose, to try to address that and show that that's not necessarily the case and improve the reality of people working within there. But I suppose that's kind of what we're up against, really. So then, looking at some of the benefits as well, because there are an awful lot of positives, and I don't want to dwell too much on all the negatives, but there are a lot of benefits that people feel of working within the industry that we can really try to capture and build on as well. So looking at tourism specifically first, the top three reasons people have, and there's real consistent theme throughout these, is helping people have an enjoyable experience, 50%. So doing something for others, giving people a nice experience, a nice day, putting a smile on someone's face, they're all real positives. Interacting with customers and meeting new people are number 2 and 3. And what kind of came out from this overall is that it's not necessarily just about customers or the people you work with or the people who you deal with who use the different hospitality experiences, but it can also be your colleagues as well. So that's a really important part. That kind of sociability and the camaraderie within the industry is really, really important as well. So that's for tourism. And when we look at hospitality, the main positives of working there is not needing a degree or qualification is the first one. So there's much lower barriers to entry, which of course makes it really appealing to students or people with their first jobs or part-time workers as well. So that's a real positive that many people can go straight into the industry and work there. Interacting with customers is number 2, and helping people have an enjoyable experience. So again, there's a lot of overlap between the two industries in terms of the positives. And what's interesting as well is when you think about it, this of course applies, the social aspect does of course apply to people who are working on the front line or dealing directly with customers, but there's also the back of house peoples, the front end, but there's also the back of house who also help people have an enjoyable experience, even if they're not dealing with them directly. So it's still something which carries through the industry as a whole, at all different types of roles and positions. So now what I'll do is I'll look at some of the differences and commonalities between employees in tourism and employees within hospitality as well. Because as we've seen already, there are quite a few differences, but we'll just pull some of these out. This is something which probably won't surprise anyone, but this is looking at the demographic split between the two. So on the left is tourism, and really overall you can see that tourism has a much more mature, kind of older demographic base than hospitality does. So if you look there, one of the figures in particular is people of age 36 plus, there's 44.8% of the tourism industry is made up of people 36 plus, where in hospitality, that's only 18.8%. Now again, that's to be expected. There's a lot of people who are students or younger, their first time jobs, who are maybe doing it while they're going to school or in college and aren't going to stay in the industry long term. But again, it still kind of alludes to the fact that how you can treat or tailor your experience or your offering to different employees at different life stages as well. So kind of building on that even more, there are these differences. I've pulled out a few key points from the research in terms of what people at different ages and kind of life stages really value and are looking for. And again, I'm sure this is something you'll see yourself regularly just from dealing with your different employees at different stages. But people who are 18 to 35 are more likely to value opportunities for promotion and increased salary. So really, I suppose you're starting off, you want the chance to know that you'll grow and that you can improve and kind of prove yourself and be given those chances to progress within the industry. But also not having to miss out on personal and social life due to work. Now, of course, that can be just part of the job, but there might be ways of facilitating it so someone isn't always working weekends or always working evenings. Where people who are 35 plus are more likely to value job security, working more than minimum wage, and receiving additional benefits beyond salary, example, pensions and rewards. So the first two in particular, I think, point to the fact that you are in a different life stage. You want a job that is stable, that gives you a steady, reliable income. You know, you might have a family, you might have children. So it's much more about the different life stage. You're looking for those different things, but also as well, those additional benefits like pension and different rewards. We'll get into some examples of those in a few minutes, but those are the things as well. And of course, one other thing to look at in terms of the commonalities between the two are public perceptions. So we spoke an awful lot about the differences between working in tourism and hospitality, but actually when it comes to how people feel, what the things people feel will be, would it be the case when you work in tourism or hospitality, there's really significant overlap, which again is building in these same themes. So the number one, interacting with members of the public, 48% of people felt that would be in tourism and 45% in hospitality. Meeting new people, 39% of people felt that would be in tourism, 37% in hospitality. And interacting with clients, 35% tourism, 27% hospitality. So again, that's really consistent, and that's all of this is very consistent with the interviews that we had with staff and members of the public as well. So that's really great for the industry as a whole, that there's such commonality between for the perceptions that the public has of it. So then existing and desired benefits. So this is looking at what are the kind of additional benefits or perks or kind of little incentives that people really value beyond your pay and your salary. Of course, pay and salary is always going to be important, but it's more important for some people than others. And also there's other things that you can do to kind of help people to help them feel better and that they want to stay in your company for longer. So first of all, I'm just going to look at tourism. So on the left here, I have the existing benefits. So these are things that people say, I have this in my role currently. This is the things my employer provides. And on the right is the desired one. So people saying, I wish I would have more of this from my employer. So the first one for existing is pension contributions, then healthcare contributions, and then flexible working hours. So again, that's quite strong, as these are quite mature benefits and additional perks to be giving people. These contributions is something else, which might speak as well to the slightly more mature demographic of the industry and kind of things that they value. And having flexible working hours in tourism, there's kind of potentially more stability in terms of the hours that you're open, so that leads people to have a bit more flexibility. But in terms of desired benefits, the first one is a clear path for career progression. And again, this is something which we'll see in hospitality as well, but that's really important. People want to feel that when they're somewhere, it's not just what they're earning now, but it's the level of responsibility and progression and salary they can earn in the future, and actually feel like there is a future for me here. If I stay here, I can reach even greater heights. But as well, overtime payments and additional holidays. So there are things which are a bit more at the kind of basic kind of requirements level that people have, but just knowing that those are there can be really important for people. And then when we look at hospitality, again, we'll see some differences here. But when you look at the existing benefits that people feel they have, there's clear path for career progression, 50%, overtime payments, 47%, and additional holidays, 36%. Now, some of the reasons these could be here as well is the kind of more hospitality often has a more shifts-like kind of nature to the work itself, and there probably is overtime payments probably are more prevalent, and people can swap shifts and things like that with other people. So that's probably why a lot of these existing benefits are coming through quite strongly. But in terms of desired benefits, first of all, you know, is that the percentages beside these are much higher than in tourism. So again, it kind of keeps that theme that hospitality is kind of faced with more kind of challenges. But number one is healthcare contributions. Number two is a clear path for career progression. And number three is discounts for shops, restaurants, and hotels. So healthcare contribution as well is a kind of more, again, kind of more mature kind of benefit, but could be something which is looked at. Clear path for career progression is interesting because obviously that's already stated as the most prevalent existing benefit. There's a couple of reasons why we think this probably is the case. First of all, is that this is something which is more prevalent in some employers rather than others, but also it could be the fact that because there's overlap between the number of people who vote for both, that even though people have it to a certain extent, they wanted even more. So they wanted to really understand, maybe looking in terms of a longer term perspective of the progression of their career. So someone could have be working, starting off in the bar, and could see how they can go and move up to become a more senior bar person or a mixologist. But they also might want to be seeing how they can actually develop into becoming the manager overall, or longer term kind of commitments. So it's something which is really, really important and should probably be continuously worked on and focused with staff. And of course, discounts for shops, restaurants and hotels. These can be those little things that, again, aren't giving people salary, but can help them feel like they're getting more value and more out of it as well. So then, really, just to kind of wrap up, I'm going to speak about the key kind of takeaways and learnings kind of from this in kind of bullet point fashion. So the first one is the public really value careers in which they have security, feel valued, have flexibility, earn a livable wage, and have opportunities to progress. So these are things that the public really look for. I don't think there's too many surprises there in terms of what people want, but it's really important to know. So the main issues for existing tourism and hospitality employees are around flexibility, pay, and training, and it's particularly in hospitality. And again, we can see that kind of overlap between the things that people value and the main issues as well. The core benefits of working in tourism and hospitality are helping people have an enjoyable experience, as well as meeting and interacting with different people. So again, it's the kind of emotionally rewarding, the satisfaction you get from your job is something which is really important. In particular, for looking and finding new people, it's more about that mindset of this is someone who likes working with people, whether that's customers or whether it's your internal team. That's really, really important. Whereas in tourism, employees would like more career progression, overtime payments, and additional holidays. And in hospitality, employees would like healthcare contributions, career progression, and discounts. So career progression is quite a common theme between them. And I know in some of the speakers later on, that's going to be a theme which is kind of spoken about. And hopefully a lot of other things within this as well will be. But one thing which did become clear from a lot of the research was that, obviously, again, this is the macro perspective and looking at it overall and the percentages of how many people want this or the other. But each business is different, and each employee within each business is also different and has different needs and different desires. So it seems that, actually just speaking with, engaging and really listening to employees and on what they want on an individual basis is always going to be the best way to kind of go and to tailor the experience to them, to help them retain them even more. Because as I said, kind of near the beginning, it's the employees themselves who will create word of mouth and encourage other people to join the industry. So the two are really closely linked. That's everything I have now. If anyone has any questions later on, I'll be around to speak as well. As I said, it'll all be available online. So thank you.